Hi, everybody. My name is Piers Kaniuka. I'm the founder of Resistance Recovery, and I am deeply honored to be asked to speak on behalf of 10,000 Candles. I think 10,000 Candles is doing really significant work. I also think that it's but one very good example of a paradigm shift that's happening right now in the world of addiction and recovery. To put it very bluntly, we are now learning that the opposite of addiction is not abstinence, but connection. And 10,000 Candles is all about connection. So it's about bringing us up together to celebrate the lives of the people we've lost. It gives us a forum to grieve. It means that our loved ones, their lives were not for nothing. And it gives us a sense of our own power, our own unity moving forward. And perhaps one of the greatest things about it is it's organic. So it's rising up from the people. It's not funded by a government agency. It's not a creature of insurance. It is the people stepping forward, taking initiative on their own. And this kind of thing is happening all over. So when I say that 10,000 Candles is but an example of the paradigm shift that's happening, I really mean that. So if you look at things like White Bison, a Native American movement that contextualizes the 12 steps for that group, or if you go, as I do, in the Maine State Prison and see the power of refuge recovery, of inmates using the Dharma to help themselves get better. Or if you track the work of many prominent people like Judith Herman or Gabor Mate, you start seeing that we're getting an increasingly sophisticated and sensitive understanding of the role trauma plays in addiction. And basically what we're learning is that addiction arises out of the destruction of community. And over the last 30 years, but certainly much longer than that, we've watched a continual erosion of the social fabric. And this means that things that normally held us together, like the church and the school and the synagogue and the after-school programs, these things are either disappearing or they're failing in their mission to bring us together. So the great news about this is we understand that if we build community consciously and deliberately, we will have the best prevention program imaginable. And that means we don't have to spend time with cautionary tales, just say no, brains in frying pans and this sort of thing. Instead, we have to just start spending time with each other, deliberately spending time. So in this age of COVID, this has become very, very evident that when we can't spend time with each other face to face, it puts incredible pressure on the community, but especially on people in recovery. And what I've seen is that in these few areas where people can still meet face to face, and I'm thinking specifically of my own experience with two very, very good sober houses in Portland, the Grace House and the Alethea House, both for women, we can see that the time together, the time spent face to face, people are really recognizing the value of that, the power of that, the power of going off with 2 or 3 people for a walk in the woods. And we can let this time be instrumental in us understanding that connection has everything to do with being together, has everything to do with conversation. At the heart of recovery is just conversation. That's all we're doing, is we're swapping stories, we're sharing our experience. And when those stories are safe and secure, and people can speak authentically and they feel really, really listened, they're changed. It's entirely possible to sit down with an AA sponsor and to leave that meeting changed forever. You will never look at your life the same way. But this applies to all of us. And so I'm imploring you in the name of 10,000 Candles, if you are not an addict, but you are interested in this cause, or you have been hurt by addiction, make contact with us. Come to us, share your experience with us. Let us learn about what you've experienced, what you can tell us about what it's like to love an addict. And this applies for nurses and emergency room personnel, EMTs, and law enforcement. We all come together, we can beat this thing. We know we can. So it's a false binary to say that recovery is either about treatment or about law enforcement or incarceration. Both of those things are top down. They come from the government. Unfortunately, in both cases, they can be money-making ventures. And they're excluding the third thing, which is the most important thing, and that is community. We can beat this thing by coming together, by sharing information, by engaging in spiritual practices, by sharing our truth with non-addicts, by doing research. This is the only way we're going to beat this thing. That excluded middle community, the thing that doesn't get the funding from the government, that is not paid for by insurance companies, that must become the most powerful thing. There is a place for recovery. And unfortunately, there is a place for incarceration. But the thing that will defeat this thing is you, and me, and all of us coming together on a united front, sharing our experience. Recovery. We're not just recovering from addiction, we're recovering from communities that have been basically destroyed through the predations of big pharma, through the offshoring of jobs, through a kind of hopelessness that is set in and despair. So during COVID, I decided to start something called resistance recovery. And what we do is we're a digital platform. We have a Facebook closed group, just write me and I'll let you in. We have resistancerecovery.com. We also have a YouTube channel where we have discussions with a variety of folks talking about topics that either directly or indirectly impact the cause of recovery. And the idea of this community is to come together and share ideas, to discuss things that are unfortunately somewhat taboo in recovery circles. And those are things like the prison industrial complex, big pharma, trauma, various spiritual traditions. And we come together and we share information, we engage in dialogue, we form new connections. We come together at other venues like the Alcyon Center up in Maine, which is a place of spiritual retreat where people in recovery and also people not in recovery have been coming together for a decade now. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring these different groups and organizations together under the digital umbrella of resistance recovery to further the cause. And the cause being the creation of community. So in closing, I want to thank you again for inviting me to speak to this very, very important event, and that we must remember our dead, we must grieve our dead, we must not forget our dead. Their lives were not in vain, and we must be there to provide solace and comfort for one another as we move forward. It's getting darker. It's probably going to get darker still. But despite that, we are beginning to see the rays of light shining through. And if we do our work now, maybe our grandchildren will not have to contend with something like an opioid epidemic. So thank you. It's a great honor. Namaste.